good afternoon or good morning. This is Carolyn Sarno-Goldthwait calling from NEAP in Lexington, Massachusetts, and we're welcoming you to the first of a three-part Helix webinar series, the Home Energy Labeling Information Exchange. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the NEAP website along with a PDF of the PowerPoint in addition to any questions that were asked during the webinar. At the conclusion of the webinar or shortly thereafter, we will send around to everybody the links to the recording as well as any of the reference materials that we had shared. So we're thankful to have you all here so that we can talk about our beloved Helix, the Home Energy Labeling Information Exchange, which also seems very fitting with Valentine's Day, right, Samantha? Valentine's Day is tomorrow, and we love the Helix. It's near and dear to our heart, but so is energy efficiency in the homes that we live in. And so in thinking about today's webinar and Valentine's Day being before us, we think about that sometimes it's love at first sight when you buy a house. You love the location, the large tree out back, or the kitchen. You really make a connection. And then you settle in and you realize maybe everything isn't as it seems and the honeymoon is over. It's like relationships. Not mine, mine's perfect, everybody. We all have our quirks, again, not me, flaws, but you overlook them for love, and this too happens when we buy a house. But what if you had a bit more information when you were looking for that house? Information that would help you be prepared for what to expect. It's like a dating site. There's tools to match you with your soulmate, and there's now a tool that can help match energy information to real estate professionals, states, appraisers, local governments, and consumers, and that tool is called Helix. So we welcome you today to, as I said, the first of a three-part webinar series about Helix. I am Carolyn Sarno-Goldthwait of NEAP, and I'm joined today with my colleagues Samantha Caputo, Ellen Tone from Tone Environmental, and Craig Foley with the founder of the Sustainable Real Estate Consulting Services and Lair Realty Partners. We're very fortunate to have the two of them, and as well as my colleague Samantha, to provide for you an overview of not only what Helix is, but how the house is a vital sign and vaccine, how to connect the dots for energy and health information in the real estate transaction, and then we'll talk a little bit more about short takes, upcoming events, and resources to help achieve greater comfort and joy and love within the built environment. Samantha?
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you again for everyone joining us today. We're very excited to kick off this three-part webinar series. So just quickly, for those of you who are not familiar, I work with NEAP, the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership. Helix is a project of NEAP, and we are also a regional energy efficiency organization. So we know that there are many folks on the line today from all across the country. So we are one of 6 RIOs. You'll see on the map there. So if you are not engaged with us, if you are not within our region, we do invite you to interact and get engaged with our sister organizations representing your state or region. And so here at NEAP, we're working with stakeholders to try and achieve our vision that all homes and buildings are transformed into efficient, affordable, low carbon, and resilient places to live, work, and play today and for future generations to come. And so I just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of our allies and our state partners for your continued support on the work here at NEAP, including the Helix project. So what is Helix? It is our Home Energy Labeling Information Exchange project, more commonly referred to as Helix. It's a long name. And this is a DOE, Department of Energy, State Energy Program funded grant to the state of Vermont. It is a 3-year project, and we are about halfway through year 3 at this point. And what this project is aimed at doing is we're working to fill the gap in the residential market by making home energy information accessible in the real estate market. So we're starting to see that consumers are increasingly asking for this information as they go into the marketplace. And according to the Shelton Group, 80% of people who expect to buy a home in the next 2 years say that they would choose a home with higher energy efficiency over another. But there has been a lack of access, readily available access to this information within the marketplace. So we are trying to fill that gap by creating a tool that will provide that information to the market in a seamless and transparent way. So Helix, it is a flexible and customizable solution for states and jurisdictions and real estate professionals. So it is a secure, cloud-based platform that allows for more accurate valuation of home-based information on the efficiency and any solar or renewable energy attributes that it may have. So it houses information in the Real Estate Standards Organization, commonly known as RESO, compliant third-party fields, any marketing or green fields, as well as technical fields that a multiple listing service may have. So that allows for the auto-population of that information into the multiple listing service. By populating home energy information into the MLS, Helix supports the important work that realtors, appraisers, and other professionals are doing by making valuable information accessible, such as efficiency, health, and comfort, and making that information transparent to future buyers. Helix provides a flexible data management solution for cities and jurisdictions trying to manage their programs, as well as utility programs. It allows assessors and realtors to be able to compare and assess homes within the database to understand how homes compare with different types of certifications or homes with or without solar. And then it allows for the export of that data to the MLS and helps create a more comprehensive MLS listing, allowing real estate agents, appraisers, buyers, and sellers to better market and value and understand what the long-term operational costs will be associated with that house. So this will make for a easier and seamless transaction process for home buyers and sellers, and really help to transform the real estate market. So who is using Helix? I mentioned that we are in year 3 of our project, and under the original DOE SCP grant, we have been piloting Helix within New England and New York. And we've also kicked off a Helix 2.0 piece of the project, which allows Helix to expand beyond this pilot region to hopefully work within up to 20 states, and that's with additional funding through the DOE CEDO office and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And so on the data intake side, we've been working with a lot of national data providers, as well as any state-specific programs, such as what we're seeing at Efficiency Vermont. So we are working with USGBC Lead for Homes, National Green Building Standard, PEARL certification, in conversations with Passive House, and also working with ResNet to get HERS data, DOE Zero Energy Ready Home, and Energy Star for Home. So we're really working to be that central repository of home energy information, as well as solar, to then provide that central repository where states, utilities, cities, any jurisdiction can use Helix as a front-end management tool. So we've been working with states throughout the pilot region, as you can see here, Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, Efficiency Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and we're also working with New Hampshire, Maine, basically everyone in New England and New York. We're interacting with everyone. It's great. And then on the export side, I've mentioned that Helix exports to the multiple listing service. We have been working with a lot of MLSs within our region. NERIN, which is the New England Real Estate Network, covers all of New England, as well as working with state-specific MLSs such as Rhode Island statewide MLS, MLS PIN in Massachusetts, and the New York State MLS. So we have been very engaged with a lot of different stakeholders throughout this process, and we are continuing to try and grow and expand Helix. And we're really just trying to fill that gap and respond to what consumers are saying. And so Helix is the tool that makes this information accessible. It will help consumers understand what the potential health and comfort is. And 68% of consumers say that they believe that their house has a moderate to strong impact on their health. And 65% also say that they are somewhat concerned about indoor air quality within their home. So there is already a broad understanding of this within the consumer market. So we're here today to try and connect that understanding to energy efficiency and how Helix can help be a solution in this market transformation. So I'm going to pass it over now to Ellen Tone, who is an environmental health consultant with over 30 years of experience. She's the founder of the Tone Environmental Strategies and is nationally recognized for all of her work. So thank you, Ellen, for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, glad to be with everybody today. It's my job in this conversation to give you the facts, ma'am, which is really what do we know about conditions in homes and health consequences. And looking at data and research, and I won't subject you to a lot of data, but I'm going to try and give you kind of a nice overview. And the reason that this kind of connects to Helix is that Helix will have the ability to show different indoor air quality labels in the Helix system, so that if I'm successful in persuading you that indoor air quality is something, the conditions in homes make a difference for health, and we can have certification systems for that, you'll be able to see those certifications in Helix. So the way I think about this is housing is both a vital sign as a vaccine. When you go to the doc checks your blood pressure, your weight, a bunch of stuff. Those are your vital signs. But one of the most important things we understand about health is where you live matters. You spend more time in your home than any other place. Just add it up. You sleep there, you eat there, you play there. You don't work there. You don't go to work, most of us, at least a day or two a week. So you spend more time there than anywhere else. So it's a vital sign. And it can be a vaccine. If we build homes that are high performance, we renovate them properly, then we can help prevent people from being less well in improving that indoor environment. So there's a lot going on in there, and you can look at a million studies, but the way I try to think about it super simply, like I think if I were explaining this to my grandmother, who unfortunately is no longer around, so now my mother, who turns 84 today, I would say the way you can think about it is there are three buckets. The first one is avoid harmful chemicals. That means don't put stuff in your home that's bad to breathe, right? That seems pretty basic. We don't put toxins in our home. Second thing is you want to make sure that the systems in the home, the mechanical systems, so your furnace, your boiler, the filters you put on there, any ventilation system, hot water heaters, all of those systems help you get clean air. I'm going to spend less time on water, but you might want to have some filtration around water, and you can think about lead in water and lead service lines coming in, something on the water side. So first, we don't put toxins in. Second, we make sure our mechanical systems give us a healthy indoor environment. And the third thing is where most of these labels really dive in pretty deeply is to make sure the way you build and construct this building or renovate it and remodel the home gives you a structure that is dry, clean, well-ventilated, contaminant-free, right? And you do that by making sure the construction doesn't allow gases in that are harmful like radon and prevents moisture problems. I'm sure you've all lived in a home that's had sort of a dank, musty smell at one point in your life. And we know if you live in those kinds of homes, you're 30 to 50% more likely to develop respiratory problems. And the other part of good construction is that it be a good energy efficient home that's warm, not drafty, has good thermal controls, because we also understand that fluctuations in temperature, for example, are a trigger for asthma attacks, and that being in extreme heat or extreme cold is bad for your health in a variety of ways, primarily respiratory, but other chronic diseases are affected by that. And there's an emerging discussion about things like lighting and acoustics and making sure we get up and move more and making sure you have a view of nature. All those things improve health. That the box on the bottom, I'm not going to talk about it all in my 15 minutes because you can't get to everything. So let's first, don't put bad stuff in your house. All the green label programs and the health labels that I'll talk about at the end, this is where people start. It's important, but it's not the most important thing, I would say, but it's easy to do. It doesn't cost any more, and consumers will ask about this. If this is a healthy green building, what does that mean? First thing is we're using paints, adhesives, floorings, wood products that are not emitting volatile organic compounds and other pollutants. And these are really readily available now. For example, you can get carpet that's green label or green label plus. the entire Shaw carpet line meets that standard. So there's lots at a million price points. You can get, and we can send out as a follow-up a listing of some documents that will list where you can get some of these green products. So first thing is don't put bad stuff in your house. And every builder, remodeler can do that. It's an easy thing to ask for. So that's number one. The second thing I want to focus on was mechanical systems. And I'm going to dive a little bit into ventilation because I think it's pretty interesting. We know that if you live in a house that doesn't have clean, fresh air, so that means the air moving in and out, right? If you imagine that you have like a paper bag and you've closed it shut with your hands, there's a certain amount of air in it. That air is the air that's there unless you imagine poking a hole in that paper bag and you could bring in fresh air and exhaust out fresh air. You bring in fresh air and you pull out bad air. So you want to get some kind of change in air because we do have things in our homes that are producing pollutants or chemicals that we would prefer not to be breathing. One is carbon dioxide that we actually exhale. So, and Craig will maybe touch on this at some point in his talk. So we know that you have higher rates of respiratory problems in homes with poor ventilation, and this is sort of the range of things that we see, and asthma I would add to that list. And some of the compounds that we find inside, we find them at a much greater levels than we would find outside, right? We've got a lot of sources, building materials, your dry cleaning that you bring in, the activities that you're doing, if you're cooking with gas, is making nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide. So ventilation makes a difference. And there are three kind of big important ways to ventilate. The one that we can all think about and get our heads around super easily is your bath fan. So it's code new construction to have a bath fan, but one of the things that we want to make sure is that these bath fans are exhausting to the outside. A good homework assignment for you for indoor air quality, now that you're going to become an expert, count the fans in your house, bath fan, your kitchen fans, then walk around the outside of your house and see if there are an equal number of exhausts that match up to those fans. If they don't match up, you should ask yourself, where is that fan exhausting to? Sometimes your attic, sometimes a wall cavity, sometimes nowhere. So these are, bath fans are important because we're going to get rid of moisture, which you'll see as a theme in my talk. We believe that about 30% of asthma cases are linked to excessive moisture. So getting moisture out of people's homes is super important. And now we have a whole new generation of bath fans, many of you are probably familiar with, that are super duper quiet. I installed my first one about 8 years ago. The electrician put it in, and remember Carlos, he said to me, "It's not running, Ellen." I said, I think it's running, Carlos. He said, "Not running." And we put a little piece of toilet paper up, and sure enough, it was holding up one ply. So the ones on the right are an example of a Panasonic super quiet one. And then controls, there are a variety of controls these days that have them run continuously at a low speed, which is going to give us those regular air changes, or ones that bump on, say, for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever you set when you're in the shower. Research shows that you tend to want to run your bath fan for about 20 minutes after showering to exhaust that moisture. So bath fans are good for this whole house ventilation and also for moisture. The other big fan in your house is in your kitchen. And increasingly, there's some interesting evidence, particularly around gas ranges, showing nitrogen oxides. That's the NO2 in the green box there. And that's a respiratory irritant, particularly for asthmatics. We also make moisture right from when we're cooking, sometimes carbon monoxide if it's not burning properly. And ventilating kitchens is another way to get rid of those combustion byproducts, particularly if you're using gas. The third part of ventilation is really that whole house ventilation idea, and the best systems for that, when we think about not having an energy penalty, would be heat recovery and energy recovery ventilators. And I have a little diagram here of what that looks like, which is basically, you can kind of think of it as a box, and we're pulling in air from the outside to feed our combustion, but that outside air is now going inside and is sort of getting the heat that was in the air that was inside that's now going outside. So we're not having the energy penalty from pulling in outside air. Say we're in Massachusetts today, it was 38 degrees when I drove here today, so that would be cold air I'd be pulling in, and I want to make sure that when I'm pulling it in, I'm retaining the heat that was already there. What we know about these systems, and they've been used in response in the homes of asthmatic children. There are 3 really good studies, several from Alaska, and they enrolled children in these studies who had asthma that's called out of control, which means their kids are up at night, they're going to the emergency department, or they have significant symptoms. And in those homes, when they added HRVs to those homes, they saw significant reductions in asthma symptoms for those children, as well as they monitored indoor air pollutants and saw reductions in volatile organic compounds, that's the VOCs, airborne mold, and carbon dioxide, which is, again, just a measure of air changes because we're exhaling the carbon dioxide. So ventilation is good at baths, kitchens, and whole house. Since I was just talking about asthma, that's one of the main things we're thinking about. Is one of the health risks that homes have been linked to. So I thought it'd be worth just showing a quick little slide of asthma. This is essentially adult asthma rates in the United States right now. So this is, I think, a few years old data, but it's the most recent data from the Centers for Disease Control. So you can see in New England, it's almost 10% or more of adults have asthma, and the kid rates are about the same. So it's a significant percentage of our population. There was a study I was involved with in New England some years ago. 20% of homes occupied by families, at least one person in that home had asthma. So it's 10% of people, more than one person lives in a house, right? So you can imagine it's easily 20% of homes. So what we know about asthma in homes is, depending on which study you look at, 20 to 40% of asthma attacks are linked to home conditions. It's the number 1 cause of missed school days in America. Asthma rates, as I said, 10% for adults. In lower income populations, that number can be double. So what's going on in homes? Asthma, something sensitizes, gives you asthma, then something triggers your attack. We understand the triggers much better because it's easier to do that research. And all of the things that I've listed there on the left are triggers. Pest poop from mice and cockroaches, mold and moisture. You don't need mold. It's damp, musty environments that have been very well documented to be linked to respiratory problems. Dust mites, tobacco smoke, this changes in temperature where, again, an energy-efficient home will help, and volatile organic compounds. So a variety of the systems I'm going to mention in a second about healthy building certification systems try to get at this moisture thing by specifying bath fans, kitchen fans, whole house ventilation. But this is a pullout from actually the EPA Indoor Air Plus label that I'll mention in a second. And these building programs require on-site inspections and give you very detailed specifications on how to avoid the thing on the left, which is a really bad flashing job. And if you were here in person, I'd give you a demonstration, but you're just hearing me. So instead of the rain's going to run down that white tile that can get behind the flashing, this silver metal, you really want it to be done in a different way where the water sheds off what's called various drainage planes. It never gets into your house. So a lot of these very good, healthy building standards work on my third box, which is smart building construction to prevent bad conditions. This is a pullout from a healthy building program in Washington State that was done with affordable housing. And these are the kinds of things I mentioned. And what they build a healthy house, what it means is fresh filtered air with a ventilation system in the top you're seeing there, really good insulated windows, insulated foundations so that we don't have cold surfaces and condensation problems, which is moisture, no bad crap in your house, so low VOC paints, flooring, marmoleum that doesn't off-gas, walk-off mats to prevent dust and contaminants from coming in from outside, and then the moisture-removing fan. So that's kind of a really nice visual summary. And what we have now is a quick poll.
It's a quick poll. All right. But what you don't know is you have to sing the poll music, Ellen. All right. So we've just launched a quick poll for all of you to ask the question, have you ever heard of EPA Indoor Air Plus? Just a real quick yes or no. So we'll give that just a moment and for people to chime in here, and then we'll move on to a second polling question. Okay, so as you can see at the poll results, that 42% of you have heard of EPA Indoor Air Quality Plus, and 58% no. So you're going to share a whole bunch of new info. So for those of you that have heard of EPA Indoor Air Quality Plus, let's see, I'm going to hide this one now. We're going to ask another poll time. Craig, this time you get to sing the thing while this is being launched. We think
and my wife and children will tell you. I think Ellen did a phenomenal job with that. We have an inventory problem in Massachusetts right now. I think if we got you out there scaring people out of their homes, we could solve the inventory problem. That'd be great.
That's true. So you're all answering
road trip time.
Road trip. I'm going to put you both on the road. So have you ever been part of a project or program, or have you ever been part of a project or program? That is worded wrong. So have you ever used Indoor Air Quality Plus, whether you've been part of maybe a utility program or a state program? Or if you're a builder, or maybe you built it in your own home. So yes, no, or not applicable. So we'll give that one more second. Okay, I'm going to close that poll. And so we have, yes, only 25% have been part of it. No, 52, which would probably go in alignment with folks have never heard of it or used it, and it's not applicable to 23%.
So the good news is I'll teach at least half of you something you didn't know. And there are, as I said, obviously green certification systems that you're familiar with, LEED, among others. EPA has a specific building certification program related to indoor environmental quality called Indoor Air Plus. It is an add-on to the Energy Star program that many, I would imagine all of you are familiar with. So builders who are Energy Star builders can get training and agree to a set of specs that they will follow and get an additional label called Indoor Air Plus, which, like the Energy Star program, requires an on-site inspection to verify that certain building practices were completed in accordance with the specifications. And there is a one-page verification checklist that comes with this, which we will send out as part of the follow-up. I'm asking Carolyn to do that now.
She's making a long list for me.
So it's really a wonderful program, and if you're a realtor, and Craig will maybe talk about this in one of his projects. So does this thing have any traction? And the next slide will show you that that EPA has partners all around the country that are their Indoor Air Plus partners, which are primarily their builders, and you can see that there's a pretty high density along the East Coast, maybe a little more mid-Atlantic-y than up in the northern part of New England here, and over 17,000 certified homes. So it definitely has some traction. You can download the specs. There are wonderful webinars on that. So that is one label that's out there that is terrific and easy to use and plugs and plays super well with Energy Star. Another thing I wanted to say about this was that energy efficiency itself, this is a schematic that came out of a report for E for the Future on occupant health benefits from residential energy efficiency that I had the pleasure of authoring. And people sort of say, well, we tighten up our homes, aren't we going to make them unhealthy? That's what we all think. Well, it turns out not to be true if you do it right. So air sealing gets us warmer air, consistent temperatures, and we can see from the research that we get less hypertension, which is definitely driven by changing temperatures, heart disease also affected by unequal temperatures, and in extreme cases, deaths from cold or heat. We're going to see more of the heat deaths, frankly, than cold deaths in this country moving forward. Heating systems give you that same thing, but also can give you, if you upgrade your heating system, it was failing, you're going to reduce combustion byproducts. And if you put in better filtration, you're going to get less particulate matter. That, along with ventilating dryers and baths, gives you fewer asthma symptoms, respiratory risks, and fewer risks around what's called COPD, congestive, I can't even say that right now. COPD, we'll just stay with that. So the last thing is efficient cooking appliances, which are sometimes part of energy efficiency jobs, can also reduce some of the same problems. So this is just like a really nice schematic when people say, isn't energy efficiency kind of bad for you? The next, and read the E for the Future report. There's one more. Is that the last one? Okay. The only thing I just want to say, there was one other slide. Another label just be on the lookout for is the Well Building Standard, which is an additional health-specific standards that also requires actual testing of indoor air quality contaminants in the building.
Great. Thank you, Ellen. That was excellent. I certainly learned a lot. And I can say my parents, actually, they're doing a whole gut renovation of their bathroom upstairs right now, and apparently there was a lot of mold up in the ceiling because there was no fan venting that bathroom. So growing up, I'm like, wow, I was really exposed to a lot of these health issues, but thankfully I don't have asthma, so I'm one of the lucky ones that escaped that. But yeah, so that was really great, and bringing energy efficiency components can really help to build that healthy, comfortable and resilient environment. So I just wanted to throw this one statistic out there that 80% of consumers think that energy efficiency homes are healthier homes. And so next we have Craig Foley, who is the founder of Sustainable Real Estate Consulting Services. He's a lead green associate and chief sustainability officer at Layer Realty Partners. He is going to help us connect the dots on all that. But I just wanted to also mention, if you have questions throughout, we're going to have time at the end, but please write them in as they're coming up. And any questions that we are not able to get to today, we will follow up with answers after the webinar. But I'll pass it over to Craig.
Thanks, Samantha. It's great too to see that we have a number of realtors on the phone today for this webinar, which is fantastic. What I love about what you just did, Ellen, is when we're selling this type of product, the high performance home product that I'll describe in 3 of the projects that I've been working on, we need talking points, right, to be able to convey the value of this stuff. And you have a ton of them in that little presentation. It was fantastic. So thank you so much. And we need talking points not only about health, which is a real driver in this marketplace, but lower operating costs, comfort, durability, resilient buildings, the best building science has to offer. We need all of these talking points. Lower environmental impact is a driver in this marketplace as well. Just making smart investments with this type of home as well. With California moving towards what looks like a net zero energy building code relatively shortly, that's a real driver in the marketplace. And from my perspective, selling the best products that are on the marketplace, I really wonder why a home buyer looking at new construction would settle for built-to-code construction when there's so much better that's out there right now. And you've done a great job of really nailing down the health benefits, which are really, really critical in this part of the marketplace. There's no question about it. And, and you forwarded me that report on Joint Center for Housing Studies, and one of the little bits in that piece that you forwarded me, Ellen, was that, and this is true, why are there so few remodelers or builders taking this next step when it's right there in front of us in the marketplace? Many homes today are built with, higher exposure to respiratory illness, greater severity to asthma symptoms, reduced control of your health, and nothing to fill the home with a continuous supply of fresh air. This is even true in our state, where we have the most rigorous building code in the country, and with stretch code, it's even more rigorous for 241 of our 350 communities. But just because we have these rigorous building codes, it somehow hasn't yet translated to builders and remodelers to take this next natural step, and that's the way most homes are still being built, and it's frustrating to me as a realtor watching it happen that way. And then we know most homes, as you pointed out, that have built in the past, the homes that quote unquote breathe, what we're actually breathing is all of the nasty stuff that's down in our basement because of stack effect. It moves right up through our home. And there's better ways to do this, right? And thank goodness that there are some homes out there that are being built to this higher standard. So these are 3 projects that I've had the honor to work on. One of them will be going on the market at the end of March, we're hoping. 2 others that I sold that really do adhere to these higher standards. You can flip to, yeah. So this home, really beautiful project. It's such an honor to be part of the team that's been working on this project from the very, very beginning. This is 346 Highland Street in Weston, Massachusetts. It was a remodel of an 1897 home, deep energy retrofit, and the developer is doing some just incredible stuff, and he has really the A team of the Massachusetts builders, architects, the subs the subs getting this stuff is a really critical part, I found, particularly with Indoor Air Quality Plus, that they have to use caulking that fits under the Green Guard labels. And, and just really being ultra rigorous with that in the building envelope. It's been really, really critical to this project and real eye-opener for me. This is the first project that I've ever worked on with the Indoor Air Plus label attached to it. Now, we don't have any of these certifications yet. We don't have a C of O. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we get all of these certifications. I feel confident that we will. We have plenty of points for LEED Platinum. So hopefully we'll get there as well. We anticipate, now this is a big home. It's a luxury product, right, in the marketplace. 7,500 square feet, 14 rooms, 6 bedrooms, 7.5 baths. With a HERS score of 20, which is unbelievable, a 14.7 kilowatt solar PV system as well, and a really advanced building envelope with Mitsubishi ducted heat pump systems, heat pump water heater, and 2 Zehnder ERVs in this as well to cover the ventilation work. Really exciting stuff going on with this project. Next one. So this was a project that I sold this fall in Cambridge. This was an all-electric home built by a really, really great builder. As you can see, the HERS score is 34. If someone were to add an 8-kilowatt PV system on top of that artist studio and garage back there, it would have a HERS score of -1. The difference between the previous project and this one is that the builder didn't go after any certifications. Thank you. Didn't go after any certifications, which, is unfortunate in the marketplace in terms of me conveying that value both to buyers and appraisers in the marketplace. Go forward one. And this was a project that was a really interesting project that I sold in January 2018 in Roxbury on Fort Hill. Had an affordable unit for $206,100. We had just a boatload of applicants for that, as you can imagine. And then the other 3 units were, market-based units around the mid to high 6s. You can see with this one, this was LEED Platinum certified, Energy Star certified as well, but had HERS scores off the charts. I mean, this was an energy positive building. HERS scores -14 and -22. This is another driver in terms of the healthy building movement. A study done by the Chan School of Public Health that looked at, this was a commercial study, on cognitive functionality in the workplace. And you can see some of the incredible results that happened by putting 6 workers, I think, for 2 weeks in kind of a standard office space, a green office space, and a green plus space, like a LEED certified building with proper ventilation. And you can see that the cognitive functionality of the individual workers grew significantly in the green plus, in the green conditions. So really does support kind of what Ellen was saying in terms of health, that connection to how your mind and body is working in general is a real driver there. This slide was really fun. I was working on the slide deck for this and sent it around, and and Ellen and I were going back and forth on the slide deck, and Ellen says to me, "Oh yeah, I wrote that. I use it all the time in my training for realtors. So why don't you explain this one, Ellen, since you're the author of the study?
So thanks, Craig, for the commercial. The commercial goes to E for the Future, actually, who published the report. So we looked at 25 studies on the health benefits of residential energy efficiency, and you can see kind of what we ended up finding, improvements in asthma. It was actually a 12% reduction in asthma emergency department visits, a 5% reduction in sinus infections, the sinusitis in the second column, just to pull out a few, a 9% reduction in cold symptoms when people moved into more energy efficient buildings or where there was renovation. So what's interesting about this is that you can see changes in symptoms. Again, saw some reductions in headaches where we did energy efficiency and added ventilation in this product. In that one study, that was a bath vent ventilation situation. But what's interesting about this slide also is that the part that Craig has pulled out on the right, which is that there are, in the utility world, which is funding a lot of the energy efficiency work, there's been obviously a long-term effort to monitor and evaluate the impact of energy efficiency in terms of reduced energy use in terms in kilowatts. But now there's increasing recognition of health benefits of this work, and they've been able to monetize that in some state efforts when they look at program design and program cost effectiveness. So I think it's the accumulation of all of these studies that are giving enough confidence for some energy program managers to really count that in the way that they do their program design and think about benefits. So for us, I've talked about the individual benefits in your home. We also, of course, get reduced air pollution when we're using less energy depending on the source, and there are societal benefits there that affect all of us in terms of usually reduced cardio problems and respiratory.
Great, thanks. So this is, just from personal perspective, history, and just being in the marketplace, this is a picture that I took of one of my buyers about a week and a half ago that brought his own IR camera to showing. So that's an infrared camera, thermographic imaging camera, to take a look at the leakage in the house, the air leakage in the house, the temperature leakage in the house. So I can absolutely say for certain that buyers are really interested in this topic, and I'm happy to say that we have that house under agreement. We signed a purchase and sales on Monday on that. So this is happening in the marketplace right here, right now, and pleasantly affecting my business. Just a couple of plugs. Carolyn, you don't mind if I throw in a couple of plugs here, do you?
I think I told you right. You would do it anyways, Craig. So go right ahead.
So NAR Green designation for the realtors on the phone is a really fast-growing designation, and I would argue the most important designation that a realtor can get right now, particularly with this rapidly emerging high-performance home marketplace here in the Northeast. And there's two opportunities. I get a chance to lead the discussion in these classes. It's two of my favorite days of the year when I teach the green designation. One is April 4th and 5th for Greater Boston Association of Realtors in Reading, Massachusetts. If you go to GBAR's website, you can register for that. And then April 9th and 10th for New Hampshire Association of Realtors in Concord, New Hampshire. Again, they have a registration link as well. And I would like to make one more pitch. This great project, LEED Platinum certified, Indoor Air Plus certified project, Net Zero Energy Ready Home from USDOE is doing a grand opening for Sunday, April 14th from 1 to 4. And I would love to see everybody that's local to be there for this great project. And people, if you're realtors on the phone, you can always come check it out, contact me, and I'd be glad to get you in there before that.
So just a quick question for other realtors that may be on the phone from outside Boston and New Hampshire. Are there other green designation courses?
Yeah, it's taught throughout the United States. I'm going down to Austin, Texas at the end of June to teach it down there as well. So it's being offered all over the United States, yeah.
Great. We'll be sure to include a link to that when we send that out. There's lots of links that have now been sent, and we have a number of questions that have come in. So we'll take a momentary pause for all of you to enter additional questions that you have into the chat box, and I will begin reading them momentarily. But this is the contact information for all of the speakers today, so you can feel free to reach out to us. As I mentioned, this is Carolyn at the start of the webinar, that this is the first of a 3-part webinar series. So we want you to save the date, keeping with our love and love theme of Valentine's Day and our love of Helix. We want to have you join us, you and Helix, on April 24th at 1 p.m. And a formal invite will follow. No formal attire, because it's a webinar. You can wear your pajamas if you'd like, but we hope that you'll join us for our second installment in this webinar series, and that one will be about technology in the real estate transaction and how that relates back to Helix. I also want to just give a nod to a couple of resources in addition to the ones that were mentioned today that we'll share with all of you. The U.S. Department of Energy had the Home Energy Information Accelerator, as well as the DOE Better Buildings Challenge. They have a lot of great resources and one-pagers and videos that are for states, local governments, appraisers, realtors, so please check that out. In addition, NEEP has energy efficient buildings, part of a green real estate resource page, in addition to Helix, where we have resources not only for real estate professionals, past webinars we've done on demand, but a renter's checklist. So if you happen to be renting a home or an apartment, we have a great resource that will help you know what questions to ask of your potential landlord. And then last but not least, NASIO also has some great resources that's available. The National Association of State Energy Officials, they have a project called Empress, and Empress is harmonizing home energy scores and labels in the market, and really have a toolkit that's available for states and local governments. It's a sister project to Helix. So lastly, I'll just say before we get to the questions, and I see a few have come in, we want you to join us. Sam mentioned all of these great data providers and the states and local governments and MLSs that we're working in the 7 pilot states. But if you're not currently engaged with us, please reach out. We'd love to have a conversation so that we can see how Helix can work either for your local government, your state, your utility, or to connect that data to put it in the hands of those that need it most. You know, as I started off in saying in the beginning, that it's truly, love at first sight, and we hope that you will love Helix at first sight if this is the first time that you're hearing about Helix. So to questions that have come in, I will pause here. And the first, it looks like there's a couple of questions that have come in for Ellen. So the first one, and Craig, you might know as well, and Samantha, has there been any data collected to indicate cost premiums of healthy and energy efficient homes over baseline typical structures? So I know that you've talked, Craig, a lot about high performance homes, and I think this is a great question because specifically here in the Northeast, in the 13 states that NEEP region, we have a lot of older homes. And so how does that compare? So does anyone have any data or resources that we could share with the stakeholders?
So we're talking specifically about high performance home price premiums, or
premium over baseline, a typical home, one that wasn't built to. There's a lot of studies that have been done on commercial buildings,
right.
But what about?
There's a lot of studies being done across the United States, and we can certainly put a resource link up to that. Good friend of mine, a woman named Sandy Adamatis, she may be on the phone, I don't know, is an appraiser out of Punta Gorda, Florida, and she has been hired to do a number of studies throughout the United States to look at that topic specifically. So one easy way to find links to the studies is just to Google Sandra Adamatis, Adomatis, and you'll find a number of them. One of the projects that the Fort Hill project that we had up on the link earlier, we were competing against a new construction project right down the street, and they were listed at what realtors in Fort Hill thought was the quote unquote correct listing price for new construction, which was $375 a square foot, and they had garage parking underneath. If you remember that Fort Hill project, it was no garage parking, but we had all of those wonderful certifications going on. And we were listed at $450 a square foot. They were listed at $375. The developer and I were nervous about that. Obviously, would buyers see the value in the sustainability features of the home? We sold all 4 of those units before were 2 of the 7 units down the street sold. And in fact, one of the buyers was competing for unit 152, came from the listing agent down the street. So you know that she would have preferred selling her home. He didn't win the bid. It was competitive for unit 152. But that was an example of combination of LEED certification, an offer of host ownership of the solar PV systems, Energy Star certification, and really an incredible, beautiful design. Got a 22.7% price premium in that project for comps that were right down the street, direct competition with us.
Great. Thank you, Craig. So we will include links to some of the presentations and past stuff that Sandy has done. She is certainly a great resource. So Ellen, you talked about EPA Indoor Air Quality Plus, and there's 2 questions that have come in, and I'll bundle them together. One is this equivalent to a LEED certification? And the second part is then, how does it relate to a HERS rating?
Yeah. So EPA Indoor Air Plus and LEED are different programs. Indoor Air Plus is run by EPA. LEED is the U.S. Green Building Council. The Indoor Air Plus is really very intentionally about indoor environmental conditions. LEED probably gets you, as I said, about maybe 80%, 85% of what's in Indoor Air Plus, but there's some additional aggressive, intentional things around health that are in the Indoor Air Plus label that are not in LEED. I actually did a comparison of these, but it was a few years ago, so it might be a little bit out of date, and that was the conclusion from that.
That's my feeling in the marketplace watching this Weston project being built, is that Indoor Air Plus is more rigorous in the indoor air quality measurements that they are looking at. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Let's see. Hold on. All right, Craig. People love that picture that you used of your client.
Yes.
And someone's going to steal that picture.
I call it Fire with IR Camera. That's my title.
All right. So with attribution, you are certainly welcome to borrow Craig's picture. One of the other questions that has come in is when will Helix be available in other states outside the pilot area? And so the answer to that is soon. So as Samantha mentioned earlier, we are working right now with the DOE funded project that ramps down by the end of June. That is the 7 pilot states, New England and New York. But we've been actively talking to other states within NEPS region and working with our sister organizations outside of NEPS region to address other areas and to expand. And that's really where that solar PV project comes in, is that actually takes us outside of NEPS region. So if you're outside our region and you're interested in learning more, please be in touch with us. We'd love to talk about how to do that. Can I take that? Yeah. So the next question is, it's great to see negative HERS. Well, I guess, it's depending on how you say that, you don't want a negative HER, but a negative HERS. Some green building programs are using heat waves and or future weather files to design for climate change. Do you know of any similar examples, especially for the residential sector?
So thank you, Tom, for the question.
Oh, I know, Tom.
I'm not going to answer it directly because I don't know the answer for that, but what I think is actually interesting is heat pumps. And the use of heat pumps that are giving us AC. When we think about buildings that might not have put in AC in climates that are more marginal, would you really put in AC? When you do a heat pump, you're going to get heating and cooling. And I think that is sort of a thinking forward thing, because we're going to be hotter in more places. And because we get more central AC, that, Tom, I think is designing for a changing climate, and I think we're going to see more health benefits on that, because it really will be chronic heat that is a problem. If you are sleeping at temperatures that are greater than 75 degrees at night, we see a longer-term chronic health consequences, and if you're living in, say, an apartment or house that gets above 85 for even a couple hours during the day, we see its impacts on chronic health. So I'm actually sort of intrigued as we roll out heat pumps to think about the health benefits of those, particularly around avoided heat exposures.
And it's such a great solution here in the Northeast. If you're heating with oil and you have no AC,
right.
What a great solution. It's just such a natural way to go, particularly if you have an open living area. I would say anecdotally, too, that we are definitely seeing, as temperatures rise here in the Northeast, we're experiencing that. We're seeing more 90-degree days, that buyers are looking for homes with AC, absolutely, and heat pumps are a great solution for that.
Great. So one of the other questions that came in is, can you address the issue of halfway energy projects, those that tighten the building envelope, but then they don't pay attention to toxic, constituents or materials, that might counter the ventilation. So
they're bad. I don't know if I can address it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, this is partially, I'd love to hear what, Carolyn and Sam think, but I mean, this is partially where we have standards on energy efficiency,
mm-hmm.
that you need to meet a stretch code or meet Energy Star or meet a LEED standard or so that you don't get this sort of halfway one. I do think that people think the health part is super duper hard, and I think we've got to get folks who care about energy to say, well, I could do that. I see the whole building performance of that, and that makes sense, and it allows me to engage with my customer clients, say, hey, we've built a really great thermal envelope, but we're paying attention to indoor air quality too.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ellen. This is where an area where building standards, building energy codes in particular come in, and there's a lot of focus on new construction and energy codes, but not enough about retrofits and rehabs, and what happens if you're Sam's parents and you're doing the bathroom, and what does that trigger, and making sure that you're not just doing the insulation and that you're doing things in a more comprehensive fashion. And so that is definitely an area that we need to pay greater attention to. But not everybody, if you think they don't understand energy efficiency, they certainly don't understand building energy codes, and not everybody loves building energy codes like I do.
So I was going to say, in addition to that, when you have home energy labels that are done for existing homes, and they provide the list of recommendations to how to improve the efficiency, reduce the cost of that, using that as a way to also have that conversation. If you do all of this together, this is how you get that whole package energy retrofit, instead of just getting pieces of that done.
Right.
And I neglected to say that EPA, with their Indoor Air Plus, is actually working on a new label now for existing homes. So hoping to see that in 2019 or 2020.
Great.
And just to make Helix real, too, for the realtors on the phone, all of the things that are going on in the Western Project, if we get all of those certifications and we have a 14.7 kW solar PV system, that would all be uploaded into Helix as a database. And the next realtor that goes to sell it would hopefully be able to auto-populate that information into the MLS, into MLS PIN. We have the green data fields in PIN, and the reality is, if you're not trained or looking at this stuff or have your green certification, have knowledge and confidence, you're likely to miss those fields, and that's a real tragedy.
It's almost like you're psychic, because it's in line, Craig, with the very last question in here, which is, in what ways have you been successful in promoting health benefits into the multiple listing service? And that is actually really what's core and part of the Helix database, is that we want to be able to capture information like Indoor Air Quality Plus or the new pilot for well building standards or Passive House, and that we're taking that information and putting it into Helix to have it as a valuable tool. So not only a homeowner who's doing that work, but for the next home buyer or for state agencies to help craft their programs and their policies in a more effective manner.
Yeah, that's great.
So with that, we are almost at our hour, and once again, I want to thank Samantha, Ellen, and Craig for their time today in presenting all this great information. You have our email addresses that are on the screen before you. I also just wanted to make a note that we have a number of resources that we've developed to support not only Helix, but for other programs and policies helping to work on energy codes or high-performance schools, technologies like home energy management systems or cold climate air source heat pumps. So please, if you're not familiar with NEEP or our sister organizations, we encourage you to explore our website to look at the other information that we have. If you have a topic or a question, something that would be of interest to you for Helix, please, again, reach out or enter it in the chat box. We have our topic for the next webinar, which is on technology, but we're always interested in additional webinar series or tools that would be helpful for all of you to help transform the residential housing stock to make sure that everybody has comfortable and healthy living environments. So with that, I want to thank our speakers once again and all of you for your afternoon, and we hope that you will continue to be all of ours, be mine, on this almost Valentine's Eve, and that you will love Helix at first sight as we did. Thank you.